Picture this, you're waist deep in crystal clear tropical water, the kind that looks like it belongs on a postcard, when suddenly your leg brushes against something you can't even see, and within seconds, you're experiencing pain so catastrophic that drowning starts to sound like a mercy. Welcome to the box jellyfish, nature's invisible assassin, and arguably the most lethally efficient thing floating in the ocean that isn't a naval mine. Here's the thing about box jellyfish that should honestly keep you up at night. They're not just venomous, they're equipped with what might be the most overpowered biological weapon system in the entire animal kingdom. We're talking about venom so potent it can stop a human heart in under 5 minutes. 5 minutes. You've spent longer deciding what to watch on Netflix. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? These transparent death umbrellas are practically invisible in the water, which means your first warning that you've encountered one is usually the sensation of liquid agony spreading through your nervous system like wildfire. Let me put this in perspective. Sharks get entire weeks dedicated to fear-mongering about them. We made Jaws and 4 increasingly questionable sequels. Meanwhile, the box jellyfish is out here actually living up to the hype, and nobody talks about it because, apparently, tentacled horrors don't have the same Hollywood appeal. But here's what should terrify you more than any shark. At least you can see a shark coming. At least a shark has to decide you look appetizing. The box jellyfish doesn't care. It doesn't hunt you. You hunt yourself by existing in the same zip code of ocean where it's just vibing, completely see-through, with up to 15 tentacles per corner that can stretch 10 feet long. That's 60 tentacles total on the big ones, each armed with around 5,000 stinging cells, which, if you do the math, and please don't because the number is genuinely disturbing, means a single box jellyfish is carrying roughly 300,000 microscopic harpoons loaded with enough toxin to ruin your entire existence. And those stinging cells, they're not even triggered by touch. They're triggered by the chemical presence on your skin, meaning the box jellyfish has essentially weaponized chemistry. It's like having a security system that doesn't wait for you to break in. It detects that you're carbon-based and opens fire. The nematocysts, these coiled nightmare springs inside each stinging cell, fire faster than a bullet. Faster than a bullet. We're talking about acceleration forces that would make a fighter pilot black out, except it's happening in a structure smaller than a grain of sand. When those barbed harpoons punch into your skin, they inject a cocktail of venom proteins specifically designed to punch holes in your cells, attack your heart, scramble your nervous system, and basically speed-run you toward cardiac arrest. Now let's talk about what actually happens if you get stung, because the clinical description doesn't do justice to the absolute horror show that unfolds. First comes the pain. Not regular pain. Not I stubbed my toe pain, or even I broke my arm pain. We're talking about pain so overwhelming that grown adults have been documented going into shock immediately. The kind of pain that makes victims thrash so violently they can't swim. The kind that's been described as feeling like you're being simultaneously electrocuted and set on fire while someone pours acid directly into your veins. People have begged doctors to amputate affected limbs. Tourists have literally asked medical professionals to just cut off their foot rather than endure another second of it. And this isn't happening over hours. This is instant. The moment those tentacles make contact, you're experiencing what scientists very professionally describe as excruciating pain, which is doctor speak for this person is currently experiencing suffering that breaks our pain measurement scale. But wait, it gets worse. Because while you're processing the fact that you're in more pain than you thought physically possible, your body is also processing the venom's assault on your cardiovascular system. The toxins are attacking your heart muscle directly, causing irregular rhythms that can escalate to full cardiac arrest. Your nervous system is short-circuiting. Your skin cells are literally dying, and you can watch it happen as massive welts rise up wherever the tentacles touched, burning red marks that look like you got whipped by serrated cables. And here's the nightmare fuel. Even if you make it out of the water, even if you survive, you're looking at weeks of intense pain and permanent scarring. Those whip-like marks, they don't fade. They're a lifelong reminder that you had a close encounter with one of evolution's most terrifying mistakes. Oh, and if you thought maybe you could avoid them by staying in deep water, I have bad news. Box jellyfish prefer shallow coastal waters. They hang out in the exact places humans like to swim, near beaches, around river mouths, in water shallow enough that you can stand up. They're basically camping in the kiddie pool section of the ocean. The Australian box jellyfish, Chironex fleckeri, which is considered the most dangerous species, loves nothing more than cruising around in water less than 5 meters deep, although they have been found over 50 meters down, which means even scuba divers aren't safe from these transparent terrors. Let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the jellyfish in the ocean. These things have 24 eyes. 24. They have more eyes than you have fingers and toes combined. They're arranged in 4 clusters of 6 around their cube-shaped bell, and some of these eyes are legitimately sophisticated. We're talking about eyes with a lens, retina, iris, and cornea. Eyes that would make sense on a vertebrate. Eyes that suggest an intelligence that frankly should not exist in a creature that's 95% water and doesn't have a brain. Because here's the thing that should absolutely disturb you. Box jellyfish don't have a central nervous system. They have no brain. And yet somehow, with their distributed neural network, they process visual information from 24 different eyes well enough to actively hunt prey and navigate around obstacles. Unlike their drifter cousins who just float along hoping to bump into food, box jellyfish are active hunters. They look for prey with their 24 eyes, then swim toward it using jet propulsion. They can hit speeds of up to 4 knots, which is about 4.6 miles per hour, and while that might not sound impressive until you remember, this is a jellyfish that can chase you. They have a ring of muscle tissue called a velarium that they use to pulse water out of their bell, turning themselves into biological water jets that can pursue fish, shrimp, and anything else that looks edible. And they're not just fast, they're agile. They can change direction, avoid obstacles, and actively pursue prey like they're running some kind of underwater obstacle course. Now here's where it gets even more unsettling. Box jellyfish developed this frighteningly powerful venom not to attack humans. We're not on the menu, but to instantly stun or kill their prey. See, their tentacles are delicate, fragile even. If a fish thrashes around trying to escape, it could damage those tentacles. So evolution gave the box jellyfish a solution. Develop venom so overwhelmingly powerful that prey dies before it can struggle. It's overkill weaponry. It's like bringing a tactical nuke to a knife fight. The box jellyfish is walking around, well, swimming around, with enough firepower to drop an animal hundreds of times its size, all because it needs to protect its delicate tentacles from a struggling shrimp. The geographic range of these things reads like a list of popular vacation destinations, which is either hilariously ironic or deeply concerning depending on your travel plans. They're found throughout the Indo-Pacific, around northern Australia, in coastal waters off Thailand, Bali, the Philippines, parts of Africa, and even in the Gulf of Mexico. Basically anywhere there's warm, shallow, coastal water, there's probably a box jellyfish floating around, being invisible and deadly. Australia has been at the forefront of studying these creatures for decades, which makes sense because Australia is where nature sends its most ambitious attempts at killing humans. The jellyfish season in tropical North Queensland runs from November to May, which coincides perfectly with when tourists most want to swim, because of course it does. Let me break down what you're supposed to do if you get stung, and I want you to appreciate how absolutely inadequate these instructions feel, given what we just discussed. First, call emergency services immediately. We're talking mobile 112, landline 000. Second, be prepared to perform CPR because there's a very real chance the person's heart is about to stop. Third, keep the patient calm and prevent them from rubbing the affected area, which is like telling someone who's on fire not to panic. Fourth, flood the stung area with vinegar for at least 30 seconds. Vinegar. We're combating one of nature's most lethal venoms with the same thing you put on fish and chips. The vinegar prevents unfired nematocysts from discharging, but it doesn't do anything about the venom that's already been injected. And finally, carefully remove tentacles with tweezers or a stick, preferably with medical help, because at this point you're basically performing microsurgery on someone who's experiencing pain that makes childbirth look comfortable. The fatality rate is difficult to pin down exactly because many countries don't have official reporting systems for jellyfish deaths, but estimates suggest that more than 40 people die each year from box jellyfish stings, with some researchers believing the real number could be over 100. For comparison, 4 people died from unprovoked shark attacks in 2024. 4. Sharks get entire programming blocks on Discovery Channel and inspire decades of beach-going paranoia. Meanwhile, box jellyfish are out here actually putting up numbers, and most people don't even know they exist until they're already experiencing the worst pain of their life. There are actually over 50 different species of box jellyfish, and while not all of them are lethal to humans, the ones that are can kill you so fast it's genuinely shocking. The Australian box jellyfish can cause death within 5 minutes of contact. 5 minutes. That's less time than it takes to find a parking spot at the beach. The irukandji jellyfish, which is another box jellyfish species with a bell smaller than an ice cube, causes something called irukandji syndrome, a condition so unpleasant it includes symptoms like cardiac arrest, difficulty breathing, vomiting, anxiety, and what victims describe as a sense of impending doom. Let that sink in. This jellyfish is so venomous it causes an existential crisis as a symptom. You don't just feel like you're dying, you feel certain that you are, and your body helpfully confirms this suspicion by trying to shut down all major systems. Here's something that should put the final nail in the coffin of your ocean swimming plans. The Australian box jellyfish can have a bell that measures up to 30 centimeters across, with tentacles that extend up to 3 meters. That's longer than a horse. Imagine tentacles longer than a horse. Transparent, floating through water you can't see them in, each one armed with millions of stinging cells, waiting to turn you into a case study. And remember, they have up to 60 of these tentacles total. It's like they took the concept of more is better and weaponized it. The jellyfish bell is box-shaped, which is how they got their name, and it's transparent blue, making them almost impossible to spot as they drift toward you through the water. Almost impossible, because sometimes if the light hits just right, if you're paying attention, if you're lucky, you might catch a glimpse of that cube-shaped bell and realize that the ocean around you contains something that could kill you faster than most things on land. But most of the time you won't see them coming. You'll just be swimming, enjoying your vacation, thinking about what you're having for dinner, when suddenly those tentacles make contact and your entire world becomes pain. The lifespan of a box jellyfish is around a year, which honestly seems unfair. Evolution gave these things enough venom to kill 60 humans, 24 eyes, the ability to actively hunt, and they only stick around for 12 months. It's like nature speedrunning the creation of a perfect predator and then hitting reset before we can figure out how to coexist with it. Although given how dangerous they are, maybe it's better they're not around longer. We've got warning signs up on beaches throughout affected areas. Big yellow signs with pictures of jellyfish and dire warnings in multiple languages. Lifeguard stations stock vinegar specifically for stings. Some beaches have stinger-resistant enclosures where you can swim in relative safety. Tour operators provide full-body lycra suits that cover 75 to 80% of your body, which helps prevent both stings and sunburn, but also makes you look like you're cosplaying as a submarine. The Australian government has spent millions on jellyfish research and prevention, and yet people still get stung, because at the end of the day, these are nearly invisible creatures armed with enough firepower to drop a grown human, and they're swimming in the exact places we want to swim. Here's the thing about the box jellyfish that separates it from most other things we fear in the ocean. It's not trying to eat you. It doesn't see you as prey. It doesn't even register you as particularly interesting. You're just in the way. You brushed against its tentacles because they're transparent and you couldn't see them. And those tentacles did what evolution programmed them to do. They fired their nematocysts, injected their venom, and left you to deal with the consequences. There's something deeply unsettling about being grievously injured by something that doesn't even care you exist. At least if a shark bites you, it made a decision. The box jellyfish doesn't make decisions. It just is. It exists in the water with its tentacles spread out like an invisible minefield. And if you trip that mine, well, that's just physics and chemistry doing their thing. So yeah, the box jellyfish, nearly invisible, equipped with the animal kingdom's most potent venom, armed with hundreds of thousands of microscopic harpoons, capable of active hunting with 24 eyes, despite not having a brain, and responsible for more deaths than most things we actually worry about in the ocean. It's the perfect example of evolution creating something so efficient at what it does that it accidentally became one of the most dangerous animals on Earth. And the wildest part? It's not even trying to be dangerous to us. were just collateral damage in its mission to protect its delicate tentacles from struggling shrimp. Next time you're planning a tropical beach vacation, maybe invest in that full-body lycra suit. Sure, you'll look ridiculous, but you know what's more ridiculous? Explaining to people that you nearly died because you bumped into something you couldn't see that was just floating around minding its own business. The box jellyfish doesn't need a horror movie. It doesn't need a dramatic soundtrack or jump scares. It just needs to exist in the same water you're swimming in, transparent and patient, waiting for you to drift just a little too close to those tentacles. Stay safe out there. Or better yet, maybe just stick to pools. They don't have box jellyfish. Probably.